everyone, welcome back to Mad About Cards and Crafts and another Brutus Monroe design team project. Every Thursday I will bring you a new video featuring products over in the Brutus Monroe store. Today we're using these fall panels and Chroma Mist. You receive 2 of each of these panels. I believe they're 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. They are printed on watercolor paper. There are several lovely designs and we are going to use the sunflower today. So as I indicated, we are going to be watercoloring with Chroma Mist. I'm going to put down the leaf green as well as the cobalt blue. I'll spritz it with a little bit of water. I'll add some water to my paintbrush and then I'm going to add that water to my watercolor panel. This is going to help the ink move and it also is going to keep it fairly light, which is why I added the water to the Chroma Mist initially. I want to just lay down a base layer and then we'll build up the intensity. In fact, I'm going to go in with the full strength of the Chroma Mist. So here I'm going to spray down the leaf green and now we're really going to get some bold color here. I'm trying not to paint per se. I don't want the whole thing completely covered. So I'm just laying down a little bit of that color. It's getting really intense. I actually don't like this look. I'm going to dry it back, but it is what I need in order to continue with the process and what I had in mind. Once I have added all of that leaf green, I'm going to add that cobalt blue that we had already diluted. This is going to give a little bit of color variety to my leaves. And then I will go back in and I will color the stem. So once I get the stem colored, I'm going to work on the center of my sunflower. I thought I wanted to go with a brown center, so I mixed the green and some candy apple red. When I do that, I actually get a little bit of a purple undertone, a really deep purple. I can see that purple in it. And I thought, So I added a little bit more, or a little bit of the tangerine orange and a lot more of the cobalt blue. And I love the beautiful color that I was able to achieve. It's going to look a little bit like a muddy mess when you look at it on the left-hand side. But watch when I start laying it down onto this watercolor panel. I'm going to put some water down and look at how pretty it is. I will come back in the end and I'm going to intensify this just a little bit more. But first I'm going to start coloring up the petals. I'm going to add some water to the petals. You notice that I'm just laying down color. I'm not being very careful with what I do. I do end up getting a little outside the line, and so I take some water from the brush, add it, and then I use my microfiber cloth just to pick it up a little bit. And the only reason I did that was because I didn't want the hard line that I might get. When I finished drying the orange, I added the candy apple red, and I love the intensity and the beautiful combination of that tangerine and red on this sunflower. But I am going to end up diluting this more, and this is one of the things that I really appreciated about this watercolor paper is that it really took the water well. I want that color to spread. I'm adding a little bit more of the leaf green, a little bit more of the tangerine around the outside, and you can see I just keep spritzing it with water. Here I'm going to move my watercolor panel once I start drying it back, and then I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to try to move it. And when I start moving it, I'm going to get a little bit of right there, that brown. And you just take your microfiber cloth and just dab it up. That's all you need to do. It's very forgiving. That's one of the things that I love about this process. I did say that I had another one of the sunflowers. I took it over to my scan and cut machine and I tried to cut it out, but the mat wasn't sticky enough and it ended up moving, and I don't get a perfect cut with the scan and cut, and that's because my mat just wasn't all that sticky. And so I do end up using it anyway, I'm going to add it to the right side of my panel. I did add some foam tape to the back of it, and then we're going to trim it down, and you're not even going to notice that it wasn't cut properly. I decided to cut my panel down to 3 3/4 by 5. And we're going to do some matting. Here's the extra Sentimental. I just wanted to pause it so you can see all the beautiful sentiments and scripty writing that is in this particular stamp set. I'm going to use the bold sentiment that says thinking of you. I did want to make sure, because I'm using Raven embossing powder, that my panel was completely dry, so I used my anti-static tool. And now I'm just going to run that Raven over the embossing powder over my panel. I get a few stray pieces, but not anything to write home about, something that I would easily be able to clear off with my paintbrush. But I do add the anti-static tool again. I'm going to stamp my image using the Brutus Monroe embossing ink. You saw that I did add a paper towel over my watercolor to make sure that it didn't get on the cover of my Misty. Once I get this stamped off camera, I'm going to add that Raven embossing powder again. I'll heat up my heat tool for about 30 seconds, and then I'm going to melt that embossing powder. So here I've stamped it. I'm going to do it twice because there is a little bit of texture on this paper. And here's where I'm going to melt it. Once I have this melted, I'm going to use the watercolor to the leftover watercolor, and I'm going to add, of course, some splatters to this card panel. Here, there were some hard lines, and all I'm doing is using my paintbrush with a little bit of water, and I am just kind of smoothing out those lines. You know I love my splatters, so I'm starting with the leaf green. This second floral has the double-sided foam tape on the back of it already, but I want to make sure that it matches everything else, so I just added it over the top so I would get the splatters on it as well. Here's the Tombow Starry, or the Gonzai Tombow Starry watercolors. I'm going to splatter it with that red gold. I thought that red gold was perfect since I did make my sunflower more of red orange, and then I'm going to add it to the sides of my panel, which I think really just breaks up the sides, so when I start doing my matting, it adds just a little bit more interest to the card. Once I get this down, I set it aside to dry for just a few minutes, and then I have cut 2 card panels. The first one is more of a plum color. It looks kind of black in the photograph, but it's actually a plum color. I cut that 1/4 inch larger than my panel, so it is cut to 4 by 5 1/4. I did add double-sided tape to the back side of this watercolor panel. I did want to mention that I did run my watercolor panel through my die cutting machine. So in order to straighten it out just a little bit, I sandwiched it between 2 pieces of paper so that it wouldn't get the impression of my die cutting plate, and then I ran it through my machine, and that helped straighten out the panel. I removed the backing to the double-sided foam tape, adhered it to my panel, and here I'm just trimming off the excess pieces, and look, it's beautiful. You can't even tell that it was messed up in the Brother Scan and Cut. I love the way that this card turned out. I am going to add a couple of jewels to this card to give it a little bit more interest and a little bit more bling bling, but first I'm going to glue all of my panels down to a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch top folding card base. So I have a finished A2 size card, and look at how pretty that is. I'm going to leave you with a couple of photographs, or actually a photograph of my card. I always say a couple of photographs, and I always only have one. A photograph of my finished card, and that's going to be it for me today. So I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks again for watching.